My name is Isabella DiDio, and I'm a first-year LGO MBA student at MIT Sloan. It is my pleasure to introduce the presentation, Using Data to Support College Athlete Mental Health. Please join me in welcoming our speaker, Kimberly O'Brien, founder and director of Unlimited Resilience and director of Health and Wellness Research and Services at NDUR For Athletes, to the stage. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Oh, is there a clicker here? I don't know if I have one. Oh, I found it. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming so early in the morning, especially it's such a maze to get in here, so thank you all for being here. So I'd love to see, are there any former college athletes in the room, or maybe even current? Oh yeah, we have a lot, that's awesome. So what I want you to do is just think for a second about what it was like during your time playing a college sport. Probably when you're starting to think back, you're thinking about, maybe goals you scored or team championships, fun times you had with teammates. But if for some of you who maybe have gone to school a little more recently, maybe we can think about the day-to-day and what a grind it is to be a college athlete. When you have so much on your plate, there is so many expectations academically, athletically that you have to meet. So when we think to this, it's really important that we consider the impact of all of these demands on college student-athlete mental health. So what I'm going to do today is speak a little bit to the state of college athlete mental health. Then I'm going to talk about possible solutions and platforms that can support college athlete mental health and how we can use data to optimize these. So let's first talk about the state of college athlete mental health. The most recent data we have, large-scale data, is from this NCAA mental health survey that had over 23,000 respondents for athletes for the 2022-2023 season. So when we look at this, we can see that there are some pretty significant mental health concerns, primarily in the areas of overwhelm, sleep difficulties, feeling mentally exhausted, and anxiety. And what we see, the data show, is that this is disproportionately affecting women athletes. When we look at some of the factors and things that do impact college mental health, we see academic worries and planning for the future as two big ones. Now, this isn't surprising, because we think about it. For college athletes, they, on top of having to meet all these academic demands that happen and career planning and everything they need to do, they have a 20-hour commitment to something else on the outside, which isn't true for a lot of other college students. So of course, how can this not affect college athlete mental health? So when we take a look at the data on mental health support in college athletics, we see that about 2/3 feel like they know how to help a teammate that's experiencing a mental health issue, and that about 2/3 feel like their teammates take their mental health seriously. And we think that with this, real increase in the amount of stress and pressure that athletes have, possibly compared to their non-athlete peers, we think that this support would be bolstered, but this isn't quite what the data is showing. And because if we look at this middle bars here, we see that student-athlete mental health is only felt to be a priority to that these athletes, they only feel like it's a priority about half of them. They don't see that college athlete mental health is a priority. So when we look into beliefs about help seeking, oh, sorry, I'm going to go back, I missed one. So maybe then what's happening is that these athletes are not getting their mental health support within athletics. Maybe then it's on campus. So if this is true, then we would assume the data would show so. But unfortunately, it's not showing that if we take a look here. We see that only about, like 2/3 feel like they know where to go on campus when they have any mental health concerns, and that there are people that they can trust. But really, the thing that may be the most concerning is that only about half feel comfortable seeking support from a mental health professional on campus. These numbers, all these numbers should be at 100%. our college athletes should feel like they can seek supports within the school, within athletics, to support their mental health. When we look into this a little more, we look into their beliefs about mental health help seeking, and we see that like their self-esteem, only about a quarter or less feel like their self-esteem would increase if they talk to a therapist. And even though only less than a quarter would feel inadequate or unintelligent if they sought mental health services, it's concerning that that's even an issue at all. That should be zero. Nobody should feel that way. So what this data is showing us is that there needs to be some other options on campus mental health to support these athletes. So one possible option is a peer-to-peer support model. We know that peer support models, although they should never be a standalone mental health treatment, we do know that they can be very helpful in augmenting current services for college athletes that exist. And part of that is because when you have a strong peer support model, you feel a bigger sense of social support, and what a lot of research has shown is that greater social support is associated with lower depressive symptoms among college athletes. So if we want peer support models to be a solution, 3 things need to happen. They need to allow student athletes to be able to share their experiences peer-to-peer. They need to be able to promote and facilitate access to educational content, coping skills, things to help them on their own with their mental health. And they also need to create linkages to campus supports. So what you see here is a screenshot of NDUR For Athletes, which is a peer support platform to enhance athlete mental health. And this platform does some different things, which I'll detail. One, it uses data to identify various trends in mood and relevant health and wellness topics that are important to college athletes. And it personalizes the experience for these athletes and also provides institutions the ability to take action and provide support that they need when they access this app. So let's take this one feature of mood tracking, for example, okay? What this feature does is it examines both individual and aggregate trends in order to deliver appropriate content to athletes. So let's say it's a week where an athlete has a game, okay? What they're doing is they're getting up early, going to breakfast, going to class, then after class they're probably rushing off to lunch, grab something quickly before they go down to practice. Maybe they are injured, so they have to hit the training room before, and then afterwards, and then maybe they have to do film after practice. Maybe they then have to do a scouting report. Then they have to hustle back, get to dinner, and then they got to do some homework, and then hopefully they have time to see a friend. Now, does that seem crazy to any of you? Like, I mean, for me, when I look back now, I think about all the amazing times I had, but when I talk now with athletes as a therapist in sessions, it is so clear that it's such a grind and there's so much on their plate every single day. So what a feature like mood tracking can do is, if they get a notification prompt to enter their mood, or they can do it on their own, you can use this data. What NDUR does is it uses this data to push content to them. This could be content such as helping them understand what overwhelm is, how to manage it, different skills, meditation, could be deep breathing to engage that parasympathetic nervous system. I had an athlete just the other day, a college rower I work with. I meet with her weekly, and in our session, she reported to me she injured her back, and I was asking her, tell me about what happened. What happened that you hurt your back? And she talked to me about the day. She said, well, I woke up, I was stressed. I couldn't eat because I was so stressed. I had 2 midterms. So I took my midterms. Then right after my midterms, I went down, I rushed down to practice, went to practice, and then right after practice, I had lift, and on my way to lift, I saw she had this interpersonal interaction that was not good, and then it set her off, and she she wasn't feeling in the present moment, and she gets in there and she does a snatch, and she tweaks her back. So this is a case of somebody who, if they in the moment could have identified their overwhelm and been able to engage herself in some coping skills and breathing techniques and things like that throughout the day, it could have actually prevented this injury. So that's individually how we can use data to help athletes with peer-to-peer support and mental health platforms like NDUR. But we can also use aggregate data to take a look at the different challenges and concerns that we're seeing, so mental health concerns. So here, what you're seeing is the aggregate of positive versus negative moods that may occur. This is taken from all athletes who have used and logged in the mood tracking in the app. And so about half are negative, half are positive. But then what's interesting is when we go into which emotions they're reporting, we're seeing like overwhelm and exhaustion as the top 2 negative emotions, which really does track with the NCAA findings that I spoke about earlier. So we can also use polls, like polling questions, to identify specific challenges that are impacting their mental health and well-being. So you see here on the screen, there's a screenshot of different challenges that they may face and different things that might come up for them, and they will check those boxes. So what that can do when they submit it to us, we can figure out, okay, what is the most relevant content we need to push out to these athletes via this app. And then we can tailor some of our content that way, as well as our peer support forum topics. So the peer support forum is an anonymous forum within this peer support model of NDUR. And what it has is you can either enter your own topic in that you want to talk about or have a discussion about or ask questions about, posing it to other anonymous athletes, or it can be planted by the NDUR staff. So what we see here, we can look at the data and see, okay, which topics are being engaged in most, so that we can figure out what's most relevant and push content in that way. So for instance, like with injuries, that's one that we're seeing a lot coming up as a main contributor to mental health concerns among college athletes on our platform. And what we can understand from this is the real power of peer-to-peer connection about this. Because it's very important, of course, that providers give their input to these athletes of like what you should do when you get an injury and how to help yourself. But what athletes find is that when they talk peer-to-peer about this, they actually can find out things that maybe and feel like a connection and way to move through this with someone who understands, who's been there, who's been through an injury and knows how hard it is to come back from an injury, or once you come back, how hard it is to feel that you're not meeting your expectations or playing the way you used to play. Okay, so that was the individual data and how within the product and how we can take a look at that and examine those data to figure out how to optimize the product. But what's also important is that we need to look at data on adoption and engagement of the product. So we can have an amazing product, right, that has all these bells and whistles and is so great on so many levels, but if athletes aren't using it, then what's the point? So we need to look at the data on adoption and engagement. So here's a snapshot from one of the first pilot trials of NDUR for athletes with Boston College. And when we were first learning how to engage athletes, and of what this shows for adoption statistics is that of the 835 athletes, 70 were on the NDUR platform, which is an adoption rate of 8.4%, with team engagement, 14 of 31 teams, so 45% of total teams. So what this does is when we get this snapshot, this shows us, okay, where do we need to put our recruitment efforts to try to get this out there to different schools? So it's a very important piece of information that we can get. Okay, so that is talking about adoption and engagement. Now we need to also look at internal data of what is the user experience with the product? How helpful is this for athletes? Do they like this? Are they going to use it? Are they using it? What do they like about it? So to do that, we gave an internal survey, which showed that about 70% said that they found it to be very helpful on the whole using it. Also, about 3/4 felt that these peer-to-peer discussion topics were relevant, and 82% felt that it met their health and wellness needs. So these are great starting numbers, and they look even better when we looked at the self-care questions, where 90% said they felt it enhances their self-care, and that it helps their knowledge and practice of it, and that they can take proactive steps, because that's ultimately what we want to do. We don't want the app to be doing all this for them. This is just prompting them to learn how to, when they're starting to feel an unwanted emotion, or they're feeling overwhelmed or emotionally exhausted, they're going to be able to have practiced this through the app so much that they are then instituting it on their own. So, in sum, we know that college athletes are experiencing really high levels of stress and challenges that are impacting their overall health and well-being. There are a lot of approaches now where athletes they don't want to go to the on-campus counseling services, unfortunately. I had the privilege of working with a lot of teams in the past few years, and one of the teams I worked with after they lost one of their teammates to suicide, and the college provided them with supports, but none of them wanted to go. They felt like, what if my coach finds out? Will this affect my play? They were worried. And so we can't assume that all student athletes want to go to services within the school, or even outside of the school, professional services. So in order for us to help get athletes' foot in the door of getting appropriate mental health help, peer-to-peer support models can be a really, really helpful way to do this. And if we want to make peer support models strong, effective, we need to make sure that we're always examining data related to the adoption and engagement of the products that we're putting out there, as well as really doing a lot of testing and surveying about the user experience, how usable the platform is, how much they like the platform, and is the platform doing what it's intending to do? Is it actually serving to support college athlete mental health in the ways that we want it to? And changes should be made iteratively all the time to make sure that we're always responding to these suggestions and changes. But first and foremost, it is critical that in every single step of the way of product development, testing, the college athletes themselves need to be a part of this. They need to be a part of all of the development and testing and changes, because this is who we're serving. So if we're not including college athletes in all of these steps, then we're doing a disservice. So thank you very much for listening, and I think we have some time for any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm Carolyn. I coach college hockey.
Oh, nice.
I was wondering if it's possible, you showed the aggregate data for the whole app. Can coaches go in and see just their team? Because I would think that, yes, it's good to learn self-regulation, but the coach can change practice times maybe, or lift times and things, and maybe that will impact the overall team emotional well-being too.
That's an awesome question. And yes, so institutions can access these data if, because on the back end, we have a system where we know the sport that the person plays. It's all de-identified. Everything's anonymous. But they will put in what their sport is, so we can get a nice snapshot of what that looks like. And actually, if you look at the NCAA data, it does break it down by sport too, which I think is pretty interesting, especially when we look at things like eating disorders and and exhaustion, other things that might differ across sports. But yes, the app can absolutely do that, and that's what's nice about mHealth platforms like this, is it can be completely personalized and completely tailored to different sports and institutions, where they can glean that data that they need to help enhance their college student athletes' experience.
Hello, Damon Borgia, UMass Boston. Unfortunately not a student athlete, not good enough. I was wondering, because I go to a D3 school, I was wondering if you saw a difference across divisions, just based on the time commitments, if that has any impact. It's obviously a different experience.
You know, if you look at that NCAA data, they do it by division, which is really interesting. And I can't remember the exact differences, but what I do remember looking is that they don't experience mental health concerns significantly differently. It's really pervasive across all divisions. And I have to say, Division III sports can be as intense as Division I sports, depending on where you are. So I think, you know, and same with Division I sports, like, yes, they're all very intense, but different sports or different coaches, it can feel more or less overwhelming, intense based on where you are and who your leaders are and how much support that they're giving you. But, you know, to answer your question, I think that D3 athletes, actually, it's not substantially different than Division I with respect to the impact on mental health.
Okay, thank you. Hello, good morning. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Oh, thank you.
What would you say are the main barriers to adoption for the app for teens that you're pitching?
Well, that's an awesome question, and I was going to talk about that, but I didn't want to go into it too much. But there's a concept called app fatigue. I'm sure all of you in this room probably heard about it, where there's so many apps nowadays for these users, and some people just don't want to spend too much time on it. So I think that what we need to figure out is how is this app different? Like, how can this be something they want to engage in? And what we're finding from feedback from the athletes themselves is that what they really like is this peer support platform, because it has more of it's more interactive. It fosters connection. So I think that's where we're trying to help with engagement. The other thing we're doing with trying to help engagement is including in-person events and things like that, so that it's not just on an app. It's feels like a whole platform. So if institutions opt into certain things, like the team can go out to their school and in mental health fairs and things like that. So it's really that's helping with it, as well as we as student ambassadors who really try to encourage it with their teammates. Because if an adult is saying, "Oh, you should use this app," a teen may be like, "Okay," but if their teammate is like, "Oh, try this out, it's so good," they're going to use it. So it's really like we got to get people who use it, who love it, and then talk to their teammates about it.
Very interesting app here. I guess I'm curious about the, you shared a slide of, when people show an emotion, that you kind of share content with them. How personalized is that content? Is it based upon just that emotion at that time, their prior history, their demographics?
Right now, it's based on the emotion they put in, because clinically speaking, if there's a certain unwanted emotion that they're experiencing, there are different types of techniques you can use for those different emotions. For instance, overwhelm would be different from something like sadness. So you will use different kinds of techniques there. So the different coping skills that are pushed to them are those that are best practiced for those certain emotions.
Hi there. My name is Keegan. I go to the University of Texas at Austin, as evidenced by my tie right here. My question is, you talk about how NDUR is specifically targeted to deal with mental health in general. What about for those student athletes who actually have been diagnosed with medical conditions like autism, ADHD, et cetera?
Yes, we do. We have a lot of content on ADHD, autism that are on the app. When we talk about mental health, and we can't really separate it too much from actual health. So really, we have a lot of other topics too on there. Like, we also have financial literacy, gambling, social media use. Like, there's so much. It's just like everything that the college athlete could experience. And if there's ever that's where these posts in the peer forum are really helpful, because if someone posts something about that, then that's cluing us into, okay, someone wants info on this. And so then we do our research on getting that content out, what the best content is for those athlete concerns.
My name is Amar Cruz. I go to UMass Boston, and my question was, how do you feel that injuries affect athletes' mental health in comparison to just the regular academic stress?
Yeah, injuries are so hard, and as a therapist, I do a lot of work with athletes post-injury and rehabbing. I think there's two main pieces. One is, if an injury takes you out of your sport, the fact that you then don't have that sport, that thing you do every single day, just the loss of that has the grief that you experience in that moment of not having that sport is really difficult. But what's also hard is once you're back to sport, sometimes athletes think like, oh great, I'm back, I'm ready to get back into it. But when you come back from an injury, especially like an ACL or some other surgery that takes a long time to rehab, you want to come back where you left it, but you have a lot of work to do to get up to that point, and that can be extremely frustrating, extremely stressful, and it can, you know, the pressure and expectations of coaches wanting to get you back into it can be really hard. So we see, you know, it can affect, injuries affect athletes in so many different ways with respect to mental health. All right, thank you so much, I appreciate it.